In Week 15 of the 2019 NFL season, the chase heats up for the playoff hunt. The Broncos do nothing but punt. And a scout for the Patriots is a bit of a fool? This is the Snap UK podcast. Let's do this.
Hello and welcome to the Snap UK podcast, your weekly review of all things NFL by those in the know on this side of the pond. My name is not Johnny Thrash. He's once again afflicted by the man flu, so he'll be resting his voice and only chipping in when absolutely necessary. And it's never necessary. My name is Griff, and I have G-Lo, Jimmy G, and Fourth and Inches with me.
Word up.
We've been for our big Christmas meal at the Chinese and a bit of drink, so this could be a little bit of a slog. Apologies in advance. Week 15 is in the bag. Playoff berths have been clinched. More postseason eliminations have been made. And one franchise blew the chance to leave their fan base on a high. So let's dive into the games and start with the NFC East. Cowboys 44, Rams 21. Wow. Somebody tell me how you predict what the Cowboys are going to do this season.
Well, let me tell you, Michael, right? I don't think you can predict the Dallas Cowboys currently in their current state of form because of the poor coaching of Jason Garrett. That's the point I'm making, all right?
I couldn't agree with you more. Does Jason Garrett get credit for this performance, or are we just putting it on the backs of the players?
I'm doing it to Kellen Moore. And I'll tell you another thing, Michael.
I wish you would.
I'll tell you another thing. I give the credit to Kellen Moore because the only thing this team's got going for it is the offense in terms of this season. And it's just Dak throwing it to Amari Cooper, sometimes Michael Gallup, and Jason Witten is old.
Jason Witten in this game did Jason Witten things. Would he catch a couple of passes, but they were key passes on like third downs and touchdowns. And it was a shame with the same with Sean Lee on defense. Actually, he hasn't done a lot this season, but he turned up big stops in this game. It's exactly what Jerry wants out of his veterans that he pays for too long, keeps on the team for 5 years longer than they should be. Yeah, Witten four for 36, averaging 9 yards per pass and a touchdown.
He had a great one-handed grab as well at one point.
He should do. His hands are massive.
And he's wearing gloves.
He's cheating, basically. Amari Cooper in this game, just one catch for 19 yards. The Rams did well to close some of their players down, but they got no answer on the ground at all.
Well, they didn't close Tavon Austin down.
No. So Tavon Austin, one reception, 59 yards.
There was pretty much a whole state around him.
The nearest
as big
player,
as Texas.
The nearest player was 18.9 yards away.
Yeah, I mean,
when he was throwing the ball. That is blown coverage.
I'm pretty sure David Blau whatever his name is, could have find him as well.
Steady on.
Blind man's bluff.
Yeah, that's the one. The running game was really impressive for Dallas. Pollard had 12 carries, 131 yards. Zeke had 24 carries, 117 yards. And that's exactly what the Rams didn't do. Todd Gurley's gone back to being 2019 Todd Gurley. They only gave him 11 carries for 20 yards this time. And they asked Jared Goff to throw 51 times. We've had this before throughout the season where they've asked Jared Goff to do too much. He's not the franchise quarterback that an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady once was. You can't ask him to throw 51 times. And
you have to if you let the other team score 44 points, though, don't you? That's the problem.
But when you've got
it's all right saying that's not a good game plan.
When you've got a player as explosive as Todd Gurley was last week and has apparently come back from his so-called injury, you can afford to lean on the run a little bit more. You don't let go chasing the game all the time. They had time to come back into this game.
That's still a huge number of points you have to go and get, wasn't it? 44 points that's a large number of points.
They gave up 21 points in the second quarter. That was where the game was lost.
But why then not run the ball early on in the game and ask Jared Goff to pass it then as well? It's not just right at the end they're asking Jared Goff to pass all the time. 11 carries through the whole game for Todd Gurley is terrible.
It's a little bit like Trubisky, isn't it? Because you just got someone who's okay, drafted high, but if you ask anybody to throw the ball over 50 times in a game, they're not going to do well.
It's less and less likely. The more attempts you are asked to throw, the more chance you've got turnovers of missing passes.
But also,
Jared Goff's still a good player, but you've got to protect him. We said this the last couple of weeks when they've been better. They've been keeping him upright. He was sacked twice for a loss of 22 total yards. The
But
Cowboys
also,
just had the beating of it.
Who else is running the ball for the Rams at the moment? Because no one else had an attempt. Surely they've got, if Todd Gurley's not fit and he can only get
Malcolm Brown not available at the moment.
Darrell Henderson is all right.
Darrell Henderson they picked up in the third round, and they haven't given him an a chance throughout most of the season. If you can't rely on Todd Gurley to run the ball, then they need to be finding someone else.
Yeah, it certainly seems that maybe Todd Gurley is not back into form like we had hoped, but it could just be that the Cowboys occasionally are this good, and that's the frustrating thing about them. They should have marched away with the NFC East. They should be one of the favourites to make the championship game in the NFC, and they're not because they're so wildly inconsistent, but you wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs.
They've got the talent on the team. Jerry Jones normally spouts a load of crap most weeks, but what he's been saying is this team has got talent on it, and he's dead right. Dak Prescott, okay, he's not going to blow the doors off as a quarterback, but he's a decent quarterback. They've got a decent running back. They've got a decent receiving core. The defense is good. The offensive line is probably one of the top 5 in the league. So back to your original point, Jason Garrett is, his days are numbered.
Well,
surely.
I think both teams have been extremely inconsistent this year, haven't they? So I had a little look at the strength of both schedules. So which would you say at the start of the season was predicted as the worst schedule, being as obviously the Rams are in a very tough division in the NFC West?
I would assume they had the toughest schedule out of the two.
Also, finishing top of the division, and they played the AFC North. Yeah, the NFC West played the AFC North this year as well.
So the Rams had the second easiest schedule alongside the Patriots, obviously.
Go Pats.
And then the Cowboys, not quite as high as you might think, but tied 14th. So they have got
middle of the road.
Middle of a road, but a reasonably difficult schedule compared to some of the other teams out there. So they're tied 14th with the Packers. So
was that the start of the season?
That's the start of the season, yeah, was what was predicted. Obviously, the NFC West has probably, with the Niners drafting 2 last year, the Cardinals, drafting 1, that would have had a bearing on what the Rams look like. But it still shows that the Cowboys have had some pretty tough matchups out there this season as well. I know their division has ended up tanking, but they've also had some quite difficult matchups as well.
But if you look at the last few games they've played, they played the Bills. Okay, the Bills are going to the AFC playoffs. More to come later. But it was the Bills in Dallas. They should have won that. They should have beaten the Bears because the Bears aren't up to much, and they should have strolled through the NFC East realistically, because we've kind of said how bad the NFC East is.
There were a few notable things from this game. Tyler Higbee for the Rams had his 3rd consecutive 100-plus yard game after 0 career 100-yard games coming into this season in 3 seasons. That's they've really changed the usage of the tight end in that position. 1,000 yards for the season for Cooper Kupp. First time he's made that because he's been injured every other year.
Imagine if you dropped him in your fantasy league.
He was injured a bit this year as well, wasn't he?
He was indeed. Excuse me.
That's even more impressive that he's got to 1,000 yards.
It didn't help if you picked him up this week, though.
Wow, that's a deep voice you've got going on there.
What was that, Shaft?
And thank you.
No one's ever called him that, let me tell you.
Not even in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And welcome this week's guest host, Barry White.
And Jared Goff has generated 20 turnovers on his own this season. He only had 17 in the whole of last season. So the O-line is not keeping him upright enough. And a bit like Brady, Goff has to be protected to be effective. Right, moving on from this game. The Eagles met the Redskins in the NFC matchup. Eagles 37, Redskins 27. Actually, a competitive game because the Eagles are just falling apart at the seams and don't have very many players. And the Redskins are fighting. They're not good, but they're trying. So despite the continued absences of the aforementioned playmakers, the Eagles managed to ride Miles Saunders, Greg Ward Jr., who, I'm just going to say it, John and I were watching this on Red Zone. I would never guess that someone called Greg Ward Jr. was black. Did not see that coming. I assumed he was a white guy. I don't know why. But he was amazing in this game. And he caught the winning touchdown pass.
I literally do not know how to respond to that.
There is no way to respond to that.
There's nothing offensive about it. We literally looked at each other and went, I assumed he was a white guy. That's how anonymous he is. That's the thing. So, but, he also used to be a quarterback at college. And not a star wide receiver. Which
Lots of wide receivers used to be
Edelman.
quarterbacks used to be wide receivers.
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill. Other way round, I know.
Well, Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, Zero Pryor. Yeah.
How is he these days? He was very poorly the last couple of weeks.
Miles Sanders had a career day, 19 carries, 122 yards on the ground, and then 6 receptions, 50 yards. Also had an amazing touchdown catch as well.
Yes, he did.
And it's one of the few times I thought Carson Wentz has looked actually really good in this game. It's probably the best he's played this season.
I mean, it helps he's playing the Redskins.
It does help he's
It
playing
does help.
Redskins.
In terms of throwing the ball and passing.
Some of the passes were crisp, on target, dropped
But his
into...
pocket awareness sucks.
Yeah, I know.
He fumbled 3 times in this game, I think. And they were all on hit me. It was just him wandering around aimlessly in the pocket, not realising every single one was a hit from the blind side where he'd been in the pocket for 6 or 7 seconds and wasn't paying attention. It was poor pocket awareness, and I think he's continuing to struggle with that.
But his passing's amazing.
His passing is very good.
Like, it's incredibly accurate, and he zips the ball in there with a lot of pace. As a passer, he's probably one of the best in the league. But yeah, you're right. His pocket presence is poor.
It's good for Miles Sanders because that's the first 100-yard rushing game for the Eagles in 42 games.
I mean, they really needed someone to pull that off,
Yes.
and they should be, putting all the load on him.
Yeah, I agree.
Dwayne Haskins played well against, admittedly, a poor Eagles secondary.
Poor Eagles defence, realistically.
Yeah, full stop. They haven't got much of a pass rush either. But his connection with Scary Terry is all pro.
Yeah.
They're fantastic as a pairing.
So interestingly, on this game, Urban Meyer, the old Ohio State coach, was in one of the directors' boxes. Obviously, the Redskins are after a new head coach. There's rumours that the Cowboys are also sniffing around Urban Meyer. Dwayne Haskins and both ex-Ohio State guys. Urban Meyer also coached Alex Smith when he was at Utah. So is he going to the Redskins or is he going somewhere else maybe?
I think he's only going to the Redskins if he's coming into the league at all. But whether or not that's the right move, I don't know. Would you not think the Redskins need an established coach to rebuild this team?
No, I don't think so. Because I think they've got some interesting parts there.
But look at Zach Taylor
the defense
and
is
the failure at the Bengals.
Yeah, but you look at Cliff Dinglebury at
no.
the Cardinals. He's doing all right.
Cliff Dinglebury?
That's
Cliff
right.
Kingsbury.
No, I much prefer
someone from Emmerdale.
I much prefer Cliff Dinglebury. That is his new anointed name.
Anyway, Urban Meyer isn't Zach Taylor. He's got a lot more experience. He's won championships in the college game. He's had a successful career in the college game. I don't think it's the same as bringing in a Zach Taylor or a Matt LaFleur. He's got a game plan which he can take from Ohio State into the Redskins. He's coached Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins knows him, probably gets along with him, and he's also coached Terry McLaurin as well. It's only going to help.
And you look at Cliff Clinkernuts. He's doing all right, isn't he?
Adrian Peterson said this week he intends to play again next season. Is he going to be on the Redskins?
Yes.
I think they need to keep him as insurance for Geis.
Especially with Darius Geis out injured.
I
He's
think
also now
absolutely
tied Walter Payton for 4th most touchdown runs.
Yeah, so Peterson's now scored touchdowns in 3 successive games for the first time since 2015. So I definitely think he's staying on this team. They'd be foolish to get rid of him. Geis is just.
I think he's got another year in him yet.
Yeah, definitely. He's not doing anything wrong.
Especially if he's sharing the load,
I mean, financially, he's done a lot wrong. So that's probably one of the main reasons he's back next season.
Done a lot wrong.
You'd imagine it's a motivator for him.
But not on the football field, though. He's not done anything wrong on the football field.
Speaking of teams that have done a lot wrong, though.
Future Hall of Famer, without any of the jokes. He is a future Hall of
he is,
Famer.
definitely.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
Teams that have done a lot wrong. Giants beat the Dolphins 36 to 20.
as I said they would last week.
You did say they would. Eli, this was definitely the retirement game, right? After the game, he was in the tunnel with his kids and his wife, and all the fans were cheering. I mean, he'd thrown 3 picks on the day. Let's not forget that.
Of course he did.
But
It's Eli Manning.
the best thing about this game is, by throwing picks in this game, he's thrown a pick to every team in the NFL other than the Giants.
Yes, that was it. This was the only team that
So he's
never
completed everything. He's now finished at 500. He's thrown a pick to every team.
He's done the reverse Favre.
2 Super Bowls. I mean, he's...
I did listen to a few things this week where they were saying they really hope he doesn't try and play
I
the
hope he
last
doesn't
couple of
either.
games because
No.
that should
Alex
just be
Tanney
it.
will be playing. He'll be
Yeah.
starting the last couple
Because he
of
gets to
games.
retire as a 500 quarterback,
Yeah,
doesn't he? And
it
they
is
should just
important to do that.
Yeah.
he should just do that for his
I mean,
legacy.
he's nailed on to be going like Peterson to go in the Hall of Fame. 2 Super Bowl rings. He's called Manning, so
50,000
Pretty much
passing
all he
yards. I think people think
Yeah.
about the picks in
And
the
only
last few years.
20,000 of those were to the other team.
I think there's been quite a lot of picks most years.
But he's someone he's got stats that show at some points he's been very good.
at some points.
He's
Speaking
immediately
of
doing better than us.
speaking of very good, Ryan Fitzpatrick is the leading rusher for the Miami Dolphins this season. Ryan Fitzpatrick,
I mean,
the quarterback.
The
guy's got legs.
38-year-old
Yeah.
quarterback.
Yeah, look, they've got nothing going on at running back. And if they did, they'd be an all right offense, but they really don't.
They got rid of their running back.
Sack one, first 100-yard game since week 7.
That's terrible.
He's not been fit. Darius Slayton, 7 touchdowns in 7 games.
New find.
Absolutely brilliant. He could be the replacement for Beckham.
Let's not go that far.
Golden Tate played really well in this game as well.
They've now got a collection of receivers rather than one receiver who's brilliant and 4 or 5 other guys.
And the last time the Giants put up 36 points or more was week 14 last season.
Wow.
Do
Do you know what I think the most important news of this game was just after this game happened, actually, was the fact that Miami have signed up Devontae Parker till 2023.
that is a good shout. I left that out of the running order, but they did. And I think that's a great commitment from him, and he obviously has faith in the rebuild. It will still be interesting to see who quarterbacks this team.
Faith in the number on the check.
And that,
Yeah.
but it's been a breakout season for him. And
You can get paid anywhere, can't you, if you're a good receiver?
Yeah, I'm sure they probably gave him a bit more as well.
that's no.
It costs bad teams more to sign decent players. At the end of the day, they have to be compensated for being on a crap team.
Oh, but you look at those receivers who come and go. You know, you take like Dante Moncrief. He just came everywhere at the beginning, and he's just been laying it down in the last few seasons. And I don't know what's wrong with you guys. Dante Moncrief was someone who he was relatively good.
Yeah, he was decent at the Colts. He was a decent number 2 at the Colts, but he's done
Yeah.
absolutely shit all at the
He's not
Jags.
someone you want shouldering the load for you, basically.
No,
No,
definitely
no.
not.
Right, moving on from that terrible matchup. So you hate to see it, but the 49ers collapsed to defeat against the unfancied Falcons on Sunday.
Kind of almost predictable, wasn't it?
29-22, 2 late scores by Atlanta, very late scores by Atlanta.
Last week, I said that they were a rejuvenated Falcons, and actually we came off a 3-game streak, which was very difficult. And as I said to Jim before we started podcasting tonight, our bye week was week 4. This team is very beaten up, and it needs,
Which makes it
ideally,
even more important to get the bye week.
we need the bye week so
This
badly.
may have cost you the bye, I think.
Possibly. I mean, if they win their 2 remaining games, which are against the Rams, who
And
are
the
very
Seahawks.
inconsistent, and then against the Seahawks in Seattle, which is going to be very,
But
very
you still need the
difficult match.
Seahawks to lose a game because they have the tiebreaker against you.
Well, no, if we beat the Seahawks, it'd be level.
It'd be level, yeah.
But,
Then it'll
they-
go down to divisional record.
Don't they have the better divisional record? I believe.
Well,
they do.
yeah, but if we've still got the Rams to play as well,
Yes,
we might
yeah.
be able to overtake them.
Okay. It's basically, I don't think it's in your hands now. That's the problem. I think it's more in the Seahawks' hands. Have they not got an easier pair of games to end the season as well?
Well, they've got us and somebody else.
Yeah, so yes then.
They've got us and and they're
And the Cardinals?
at Cardinals at
Yeah.
home, so yeah.
So you give the slight edge to the Seahawks, which
Yeah,
I think is
probably.
fair.
Which means we're going to Philadelphia or Dallas, probably.
yeah.
So you're not terrified.
No,
Which one
but
would you
it's
rather
just
have?
it's just that I'd rather have
I'd rather go to
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think so as well. Kittle came out after the game and said, "This is just a wake-up call. It just reminds us that we've got to be concentrating to go into the playoffs at full speed." Is it as easy as that? Just brush it off and say, "Okay."
Well, it's the right attitude. I think they'll all be disappointed. They come off of a high in when they beat New Orleans in New Orleans. This is This is probably the lowest of the low for the season. Realistically, they've lost the previous 2 games. They've lost 2. They've lost to the Ravens. They've lost to the Seahawks. They're 2 good teams going to the playoffs as well. They've now lost to a team who aren't going to the playoffs. They did beat New Orleans.
I think this is the first time we've
So-
lost a game we shouldn't have lost.
Yeah, I
So
think
we were
you're right.
19-10 up, and going into the 4th quarter. And I looked at my phone, and then I just didn't look again because I just presumed we won the game. And then I kind of looked back later and was like, "What happened there?"
All 3 of the scores that have defeated the Niners this season have come in the last 10 seconds of games. I think it's the first team ever to have won 10 games in a season and lose 3 games in the last 10 seconds.
I think in general, though, I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. So it's a case of keeping your concentration and keeping that level of effort throughout the game. Like Gary said, though, their bye was a long time ago for the 49ers. There is going to be a level of, tiredness. It's going to start creeping in. That'll start creeping in towards the end of the games. I think the key for me on this was that we probably didn't put enough pressure on Matt Ryan. Our passing defense isn't the same when Richard Sherman's injured. He's meant to be coming back for the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And realistically, they couldn't stop Julio Jones.
Julio Jones?
Julio Jones.
Well,
yes,
this was the
Jones.
Jones and Kittle Bowl. Both of them 13 receptions for 134 yards.
Well,
Very different
we've struggled against big receivers. We struggled against Jared Cook last week, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
It's very true. Julio had 2 touchdowns. Kittle didn't score, but other than that, their stat lines were identical.
Kittle had some amazing catches. He had some very important catches as well on like third down. He was absolutely
And some awesome blocks.
and some awesome blocks. That first 49ers touchdown where he blocked the guy for about 10 yards. I've forgotten what I was going to say. The other concern, as well as the passing defense, the passing game. Yes, Kittle had a good game, but no one else really did anything. We didn't see Emmanuel Sanders at all. Really, he had 2 receptions for 9 yards. Deebo Samuel 1 reception for 29 yards. Kendrick Bourne had a really important drop on third down, which it was very early in the game, but
We just looked tired up.
yeah. So.
We need a break.
Hopefully, they've taken it easy on them in terms of kind of physical workouts throughout this week, and they'll prepare for the Rams.
Well, what kind of running is that? Ravens, Saints,
Packers before that,
Packers,
Hard work.
Seahawks, Rams.
and it's spending a week. It's spending the
Falcons.
There's a whole week spent on the East Coast as well, away from home, which doesn't help. No matter how. Yes, you might get all the rest you want, but if you're not in your own home, sleeping in your own bed, you tend not to get as much sleep.
11th toughest schedule in the league. The Niners, and a bye in week 4 makes for a very difficult end to the season.
End of the day, like we were picking second in the draft this year. We were the second worst team in the NFL last year. They're now going to the playoffs as one of the NFC favourites. So, look, we would have taken that before the season started, hands down. So let's not be too down.
Nick Bosa up to 9 sacks for the season. I think that's the second. Is it the second 49ers player in the last 10 years to reach 9 sacks in a season?
Yeah, potentially.
I think so.
He's also I think he's third on the list of pro football rating for debut seasons as pass rushers behind Alden Smith and Von Miller.
And the other thing from this game is, has Dan Quinn done enough to keep his job? They're 5-9.
No.
I don't think so either. But
yes. What, it's first season?
No, Dan Quinn of the Falcons.
The Falcons head coach.
Yeah.
Him that got to the Super Bowl and got blown out years ago.
Well, I think he will. I think he'll stay.
You reckon?
I think there's a possibility.
If they win out and they go 7-9, I think
there's not a lot. There's not a lot of noise, is there?
No, but
No.
the Falcons
Apart from us, there's not a lot of noise.
The Falcons aren't one of the types of franchises that make a lot of noise, though. I think they decided early in the season that his time's up. The only thing that will save him is this team is obviously fighting for him. He's obviously doing something right. He's doing something which Jason Garrett hasn't been doing at the Cowboys, where it seems like the players are playing for him. But you've beaten in a season where you've gone to San Francisco and beaten the 49ers, and you've gone to New Orleans and you've beaten the Saints, and they've lost all those other games.
I just don't. I don't think there's enough. Where's all this coaching talent? Griff would sack. Probably 6-7 head coaches.
There's 9.
Normally,
there's 9 on the hot seat.
Normally, by week 4, he's calling for Sean Payton's head.
He'd sacked Matt Patricia before the season started.
Yeah. So
would I have been wrong? No, exactly.
But who is going to replace all these people?
There'll be
That's
there's
very
offensive and there's offensive and there's defensive.
I know, but are they going to be
and
any
there's
better?
college coaches. I don't know. The grass is always green on the other side, isn't it?
Not if it's Hugh Jackson and Jeff Fisher on it.
So Seahawks 30, Panthers 24. Game probably wasn't this close, to be honest. But the Seahawks now sit atop the division as they have the tiebreaker over the 49ers. And we learnt this week that Will Greer is going to start for the Panthers.
So you forget Will Greer, who was drafted ridiculously high in our draft.
When we did our fantasy draft, you drafted him in the first round.
You took him about 8th, didn't you?
I took him 9th.
9th, yeah.
Well, you have faith. Let's see if you were right. Kyle Allen, 25 of 41, 277 yards and a touchdown, but 3 picks. Considering he only threw 1 pick the first 5 games he
2
played.
bad picks as well.
Yeah.
One unlucky one which bounced off one of the receivers and the linebacker caught it, but there were 2 other very bad picks.
I still like Kyle Allen, but he has regressed, and he's going to be a career backup, isn't he? That's where he's going to be. It's a 10-year career as a backup. They need to see whether Will Greer is going to be the
If not,
next
do we
step.
see the return of Cam?
It sounds more and more likely, unless Greer lights one of these 2 teams up towards the end of the season.
Although I have heard it suggested that Cam is going to the Chargers.
Yeah, and I've seen the Bears.
I've had the Bears.
So maybe it just depends whether they think they can get enough out of Greer and Allen. I'm not sure.
I didn't think much. I mean, you say the scoreline wasn't as close. At the end of the day, the Seahawks had a decent lead and they gave away a lot of points towards the end. And this has been the Seahawks for the whole of this season. They've won a lot of games by one or less score. So yes, they're winning the close games, and I think that's actually
aren't all their wins by one score.
Yeah, and that's a good quality to have if you can play close games and win out. If the 49ers,
especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, the 49ers had that this week, they probably would have won their game. But I do still think the Seahawks are beatable, and now they're down a receiver as well after Josh Gordon got suspended for a 5th time.
Forever. Can you see him coming back into the league? Surely he's done. I know he's only 28.
Jim
surely
and I were
he's
having
done.
this discussion. Has he been suspended for PEDs or has he been suspended for weed? Because I've read both. If he's been suspended for weed, this is insane. Because the NBA now no longer test for weed because they said they'd have to kick out half of their players. The NFL, he lives in
Seattle,
Washington,
where it's legal.
Where it's legal. You cannot have 50 states with all different rules on weed and ban players if they smoke it. So you've got to make a statement. As a league, your players need help recovering from their injuries week to week. No one has ever said, we lost that game tonight because that receiver is so pumped up on weed, he ran past all of our defence 3 times and scored a load of touchdowns.
Yeah, it's hardly enhancing to the play. I think this will be something which the NFL Players Association put on the table when it comes to the next CBA in terms of we don't want this testing anymore.
If that's the case and it's weed that he's been done for, he can still come back. If it's PEDs, it's going to be a step too far.
And he probably got them from someone at the Patriots if he did.
Probably. They were being carried around in a camcorder bag. I don't know what happened to the camcorder.
Anyway, enough of that. Tyler Lockett was back this week. 8 receptions, 120 yards. Looked really good. Got a touchdown as well.
Christian McCaffrey, 175 total scrimmage yards.
If only you were still in a fantasy playoff situation to use him, Jim.
Only I was, yeah.
Carolina have allowed 26 rushing touchdowns this season with 2 games to go. That is insane. And the Seahawks are 56-0 when leading by 4 points at halftime since 2012.
That's impressive.
That is insane.
Also impressive, Luke Kuechly's stats, 17 tackles throughout the game. And I think even on that Tyler Lockett touchdown, Tyler Lockett kind of crept behind him. And Luke Kuechly turned around and turned back to the bench and looked to the bench and go, I can't mark everyone.
I cannot possibly be everywhere.
I can't do everything.
I've not been at all impressed by Perry Fewell and what the game plan he's putting together. It just seems to be, let's throw some talent on the field and hope it sticks.
What does impress me, though, about the Panthers game is their running game. Also, they're almost running and passing the whole offense realistically. But like the 49ers, they seem to have a lot of motion before the snap of the ball. And there's 2 or 3 options as the ball is snapped, which the defense has to take into account to. It's worked for the 49ers this year, where it's either gone to Breeder, Mostert, or it's been a pass, or it's been a play-action pass, or it's been some sort of trick play where receivers end up throwing it. And I can see with the talent that the Panthers have got on the offense now, with the likes of McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel, and DJ Moore, if they get a decent quarterback, and the offensive line's not terrible, if they get a decent quarterback, if the Cam Newton of old comes back and plays well, that could be a really, really good offense.
The Patriots took on the 1-win Bungles, and despite a poor start, the league's best secondary made it a rough night for Andy Dalton and company. And in the
Pretty
process,
easy when you know what they're going to do.
Yeah, we're going to get to the cheating in a minute, and I'm not going to gloss over it. But we ensured an 11th straight playoff appearance for New England. Let's address the cheating. The Patriots have been cheating.
Yeah, it's blatantly obvious.
I mean, we literally just now sat here and watched the video which Jay Glazer released, and the guy he's as guilty as sin, isn't he? When the Bengals,
I'll delete it.
Yeah, Bengal security comes over. I'll delete it, sir. I promise to delete it. It's not there anywhere. I'm going to delete it. Please don't tell my boss. The guy knows he's getting fired in the morning. He's trying to do everything to save his job, let alone kind of
See,
the
the thing
Patriots'
is, the only person that would even attempt to defend this hasn't got a mic tonight, because when Leeds did this and just went, cheating in the championship last year, John defended that quite vehemently.
Yeah.
But this is just shocking. It's the barefaced way he does it.
I'm going to defend John here for a second.
He sent the Chiefs' equipment to the wrong place last week. It's just like someone's got to get hold of this bloke.
I will defend John.
It's like he's Senator Palpatine or something.
Because the difference here is that the Leeds are always useless in the playoffs, so it doesn't matter how much cheating they do to get there. Whereas the Patriots normally quite good once we get there.
Because you cheat in them as well.
But this feels like the old school for if you're in the US soccer or English football, the old style in the 80s where the opposition locker room, they'd put water all over the floor so it'd be icy and slippy when you walk in. It's just, how can I get into your head as easy as possible? That's fine.
Yeah,
no equipment for you.
That was legal. This is beyond the laws of the game. You can't film the other sideline. And they've been caught doing it.
But why
literally red-handed.
Why are they doing this with a team that's going to end the season 1-15?
I guess the question is, how many times have they done it before? Because, they've been caught doing it against the Bengals when, you're right, they absolutely...
So, I don't know, I've not looked into how many documentaries they've produced
exactly.
over the last few years.
These are the questions which are going to be asked, okay? You've got caught doing it against the Bengals. Has it happened before? How long has this documentary been made? What's the deal there? The NFL are going to have to ask these questions. They probably glossed over it a bit this time last week, and I think everyone did, and everyone just kind of presumed it was just everyone jumping on the hype train of, all the Patriots are cheating again. Isn't that fun? It was good laugh to talk about that. But then the video comes out, it's like, no shit, the Patriots are cheating again.
The thing is, though, like I've said to Griff, I think the cheating and taking that competitiveness just slightly over the line, for me, taints this dynasty. It takes away from the integrity of what they've achieved. And I think that will always be there. Now, Griff, as a Patriots fan, may well disagree, and he's probably still enjoyed the wins, but it leaves a bitter taste over something that should be viewed as historic success. But because of small things, and integrity does matter. If there is to be no integrity, then there just might as well just be no point. It's like having a fantasy league, and because you get out, you just drop all your players. It just takes away from everything, doesn't it?
Yes.
Can I also point out Leeds United won a Fair Play award this year?
Good job.
Yeah,
Anyway.
all right. So I wouldn't.
The Patriots ain't winning a Fair Play award.
I wouldn't for a second defend what the Patriots have done. I was the first one to say I think we've cheated, because I do. I don't give a monkeys about how much it tarnishes the wins. They're going to take those off us. And I support Luton Town in English football, and we win chuff all. So we win or bust. I don't care how it's done.
We got done for cheating.
So when you did, you got kicked out of the Football League for cheating.
Wasn't that money problems? That's different.
So I'm going to say this as someone who's not a Patriots fan. If the Giants won the Super Bowl next year and we were cheating all the way, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. So I don't. I think every team is pushing the boundaries. It's just the Patriots push them even further. The only thing is, I also think they're now the most scrutinised because they've been caught so many times. I'm not saying it's wrong. Of course, that's going to happen. Let's look at something a bit more positive.
But I mean, also they're the most scrutinised because they keep getting caught cheating. Stop cheating.
Yeah, you think just do your job. Do your job
whiter
better.
than white at the moment. They should be playing everything by the book.
Let's be positive. Stephon Gilmore, is he the new Darrell Reeves?
Oh no, I thought you were going to say, is he the defensive player of the year?
Well, all right, is he defensive player of the year?
He's also the new Darrell Reeves. He's an island.
6 interceptions, ties him for first. 18 passes defense on season, ties him for first. He's got 2 pick sixes on the year. He's had 36 solo tackles. Honestly, it's incredible.
Very rare a cornerback wins Defensive Player of the Year.
It is very rare, but he could.
He could.
Yeah.
I think he should.
I
said that last week, but I don't think he will.
He is the best player on the Patriots.
I think he's the best defensive player in the league.
Yeah, which means he
He
should
just
be winning.
baited Dalton into 2 of those throws at the weekend. And then as soon as Dalton moved away from Gilmore, he threw the other way to J.C. Jackson. He picked him off twice as well. Look, Dalton, we know where Dalton is. We've been through this before, but this was a masterclass in how to defend an average quarterback. Bait them into the throw and just pick him off.
Oh, I agree with you, but I feel, the coverage that's been and the coverage that we've had today, a team that's been in the playoffs for, 75,000 years consecutively.
11 straight years, yeah.
Close.
Yeah, not far off. Beat a team that are cat shit, that are just utter rubbish. That's not, They should demolish. They should embarrass the Bengals.
Yeah, and they just about did. Mixon played well, 136 rushing yards. He's been good the final 6 or 7 games of the season. But Brady, just 128 passing yards.
One of his worst games of his career, did I hear?
It was his worst.
It was his lowest pass.
It was his worst at half time, I believe.
Well, he said this week as well that he's going to take the record back off Drew Brees, isn't he? The touchdown record.
I'm not sure he is.
I don't see that happening for very long.
No.
Got to get past Peyton Manning first. You were moaning last week about the running game of the Patriots. Sony Michel looked a bit better this week. 19 carries at 89 yards.
It was against the Bengals.
6 carries for 53 yards. He's still got to do it.
Yeah, I thought Burkhead played well. You know, it was about a 30-yard run Burkhead had. That was his longest ever run
33 yards.
as a running back. His longest single run.
Against his former team as well.
Yeah, it was the Burkhead and Sanu revenge game. Sanu, however, played crap.
Sanu,
He's
one
been pretty
reception
bad.
for 14 yards.
So, AFC teams that are not crap. The Ravens, 42, beating the Jets 21 on Thursday Night Football last week. And Lamar continues to roll to the MVP, past Michael Vick's quarterback rushing record, and the 10th consecutive wins for the Ravens, which is a franchise record. The Jets, they're just
The
bad.
Jets are playing a good team. They're
Yeah.
playing probably the best team in the NFL.
Yeah,
at the
but
moment.
they did just lay down eventually. They were sort of keeping up, and then they gave up rather than kept up.
But you would have expected the Ravens to beat the Jets by this margin. There shouldn't be a surprise with
Yeah,
that.
it's not a
Absolutely.
surprise. But I'll tell you what was a surprise: the fact that the Jets had only allowed 3 passing touchdowns in the last 5 games, but allowed 5 in this game alone. And I think a lot of that is credit to the fact that everyone has to defend the run against Lamar. So now the field is open for him to pass. And unlike last year, he's now taking advantage of it so well.
Absolutely, and now he seems. I mean, his passing's come on leaps and bounds. Even throughout this season, the number of different types of passes he makes. His sidearm passes are they're a thing to behold. I'm not really sure how he manages to get so much power on the ball with just literally a flick of the wrist.
The mind boggles.
Your mind boggles.
There's not a lot else to be said for this game. So we'll move on to playoff clinching Buffalo Bills. 17-10 win over the Steelers. It's the first 10-win Bills season since 99 and the second playoff appearance in 3 years, having not previously been there since 99.
So second playoff position. The second playoff. What's the word?
Appearance?
Appearance is the word. Second playoff appearance in 20 years.
Absolutely. John Brown
Is
passed...
that the same as saying there's been 2 since 1999?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I like, my way is better. But then I've completely
It didn't-
ballsed it
it
up.
didn't
You
sound
It
it.
didn't,
Didn't sound
bad.
better, did it? John Brown
Got a
has
lot
gone
of
over
food in my
1,000
belly.
yards for the season. And Tre'Davious White is the other man with 6 interceptions.
Can
So-
they still win the division
Yeah,
then?
they can because we've
Yeah,
got to play
they
them.
can.
Yeah.
But both teams are in. It's wild card and division
Because
winners.
this is one of the only times we've headed into kind of week 16 with so many seedings up for grabs on the AFC and NFC
It's
side.
the most in 7 years,
That's what I
8
mean.
years.
It's crazy
Yeah.
because a lot of the time people are resting players, and that will hurt
Yeah.
some of these teams
I think
as
the
well.
only team that might be able to rest players would probably be the Ravens in week 17. If they start the number 1 seed next week, which I think they can, then potentially they could rest players, which I think the Steelers have got them in the final week of the season. So that could be interesting because the Steelers are still in contention for the wild card, so they're still going to be going at it hammer and tongs. Speaking of Steelers, Devlin Hodges,
Duck.
yeah, whatever. Duck
4
Hodges.
picks against the Bills. That was
They asked
It
him
was
to
gonna
throw.
happen.
I mean, yes, he's got a big, powerful arm, but they asked him to throw long a lot. When he was throwing short, he was actually more. He was obviously more accurate, and passes and plays were much better. Ask him to throw that distance. It's just not. It's just not going to work with a rookie quarterback. It's certainly not going to work with a rookie undrafted 4th choice quarterback.
No, there are clearly limitations, and it was difficult for them in this game. But the Bills' defense is so good; it's
Yeah.
almost as good as the Patriots. It's right up there.
Look, I
Tre'Davious
was
White's amazing.
surprised. I thought at home the Steelers would be able to win this game, but the Bills' defense was just clearly too good
Yeah.
for that offense. Which is a bit beaten up, bit makeshift, and it just wasn't enough, was it?
They did get Connor back, but they eased him in, and as long as he's fit for next season, that's all they're interested in now. There's no point putting too much pressure on. TJ Watt, 13 sacks for the second consecutive season. That's an impressive defensive performance.
Yeah, I mean, he's another one that's in the
running,
in
yeah.
the running for defensive
Of course,
player
that
of the year.
defense has been brilliant. And here's the one that, for me,
It'll go to a more successful team, though. I think. I know it's an individual award, but
Yeah, I know
you
what
don't
you
normally
mean.
see that go into a player
it
in the middle of the
depends.
table.
If the Steelers manage to creep into the playoffs, which they
Maybe.
still can, then he's got a chance because there's no way they deserve to be there. But Josh Allen, 9 rushing touchdowns is the most ever by a Bills quarterback in the Super Bowl era.
Well, he's on track to get 1,000 rushing yards as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's only second.
He's
behind.
gone under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I watched a
Yeah.
fair bit of this game, and he just looks a lot like Cam Newton in so many different ways, in terms of that way he rushes with the ball, but also his inaccuracy when it comes to passing.
Yeah,
So
I
he's
mean,
got the good and the bad of Cam Newton.
He's a big lad as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The size of him, his touchdown last week was literally a classic Cam Newton barge his way over the goal line.
So, the AFC South battle may have fallen decisively in favour of the Texans following their 24-21 win over the Titans. This game saw 3 red zone turnovers between the two quarterbacks, and Carlos Hyde going over 1,000 yards for the season, which is fairly impressive for a guy who wasn't really on a team.
Well, everyone thought Duke Johnson was going to lead that backfield, and then
he's been anonymous
obviously
this season.
The Browns then signed Kareem Hunt and kicked Hyde out as well.
Only 2 players have 100 rushing yards against the Titans this year. He is one of them, and Run CMC is the other one. So it's impressive from Carlos Hyde. I thought Tannehill was unlucky with his red zone interception this game. That was another one that hit a player, pinged up in the air, and got picked off. But the fact that the Titans didn't get the best out of Derrick Henry on the day, the Texans more or less shut him down. What did he get, 70-odd rushing yards?
No, 86.
The first game in 5 where he hadn't gone over 100 and scored, and it showed. Jonnu Smith had the longest ever run by a tight end.
57 yards.
It's very impressive. Longest run from a running back position.
AJ Brown had another really good game as well. 8 receptions, 114 yards, 1 touchdown. He hasn't got the height of Julio Jones, but he does remind me a lot of Julio Jones in terms of his physicality. He look at him, he's thick, he's big, he's a big receiver. You're not going to shake him off the ball, and he's very quick as well. This week his longest catch was for 60 yards. Last week it was 91 yards.
Yeah.
So he's able to catch the ball and get away from the defenders as well.
The point we were making last week was proven in this game. As soon as Will Fuller is in the lineup, Hopkins is a different player.
Yeah.
And then Kenny Stills contributing as well. Let's not forget Stills was transferred in as part of the Laramie Tunsil trade. He's been excellent this season for the Texans.
Really
As a third, he's got to be one of the best WR3s in the league.
It's a great receiving course. If the three of them are playing, it's an incredibly good offense. Will Fuller's stats aren't amazing. I mean, the 5 for 61, but like you say, it opens up the game for DeAndre Hopkins. 6 receptions, 119 yards.
Did we notice this week that the Texans refusing to deny that JJ Watt could be back for the playoffs? That's a massive boost if they get into the playoffs, which it now looks like they will.
I think they will, yeah.
And they get Watt back.
I just
Supposedly
worry
fit.
whether he's going to be 100%.
They get
fit.
everything back. That's what they get back.
Wow.
But he's one of those players that you'd have him playing at 80%, and he'd still deliver what most players couldn't do at 110.
Oh, absolutely, but then do you screw yourself over for the rest of his career?
Yes.
The career is getting short of him. If this is your chance to run at the championship game, then you have to have him in.
Can you see the Texans beating the Ravens?
On any given Sunday.
Didn't they beat them already?
What happens if the game's on a Saturday?
Didn't they beat them already?
that's
The
great
Texans
then.
not one of the teams that beat the Ravens this year?
I don't know.
I think so. Right. This is one that we've got to touch upon. It was the last game in Oakland, and the Raiders, for want of a better phrase,
Shit the
bed. It was Jags
I'll
20,
allow that one.
Jags 20, Raiders 16. Gardner Minshew, 2 passing touchdowns to end the Jags' 5-game losing streak.
It was
wow.
16-6 up.
Yeah, they were 16-6 up. There was a bad refereeing call in this game. Derek Carr rushed and slid for the first down, which would have helped them, towards icing the game, and was ruled as out of bounds, and he wasn't. They got it wrong.
And that stopped the clock, and it effectively stopped them winding it down to the 2
Yes,
minute warning.
the 2 minute warning. Yeah. And he was celebrating. He was pointing at the crowd. He was doing the muscle poses, and all the while the clock had stopped, and he obviously didn't know.
It's one of these. There are several things, and we've talked a lot about pass interference this year. There are several things you can't, or coaches can't challenge referees on, and maybe that's the right thing. But just why not make everything challengeable?
Yeah, you don't give them any more challenges.
No, but you just say, right, any call is challengeable, because that one they'd be like, well, hang on, no, he's definitely in. Challenge that, keep the clock running 2 minutes, and they've probably won the game.
But then you look at it like the Patriots last week with Unkill Harry. That worked in everybody's favour that wasn't challengeable.
Yeah, but it's wrong.
It
No,
is
it-
wrong, but
that game, it was right.
That was challengeable. They just ran out of challenges.
yes, that is true. Because they were forced to challenge something before that the referees got wrong. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, but how do you like it when it doesn't go your way, huh?
Well, that's just the way it goes.
I just wanted to say it again for another week. Sorry,
they
I just
also
wanted to harangue
had
you.
the Raiders also had the chance to win this with a Daniel Carlson field goal that they got to kick twice. He missed the first kick, but the Jags were flagged for offside. Sorry, hitting the kicker, I think, and then he missed the second kick as well. Oakland shot themselves in the foot in a way only Oakland and maybe the Chargers and the Browns. They're the 3 teams that you'd say could do
And then
this.
the fans smashed up the stadium.
Did they smash the stadium up? I know they
They
emptied.
ripped a load of seats out, didn't
Seats
they?
ripped out.
I just saw the field was covered in nachos. which, considering how much we had to pay for nachos at Wembley this year, that's a lot of
I hope it's a bit cheaper
money.
over there.
Yes, $1 million worth of nachos on the field.
Oh, some couple behind us bought a metre of nachos and they didn't eat them.
No, they should have passed it over, really. We could have been
Ridiculous.
reaching from there. Waller continues to be the standout player for the Raiders for me, especially while Jacobs isn't playing.
Yeah, I also think Max Crosby, the defensive ends, had a really good rookie season. He's another one.
Certainly impactful.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick Bosa is going to win defensive rookie of the year, but Max Crosby is definitely up there in the rankings.
Not the same team without Jacobs, though.
No,
No.
Their
Definitely
form
not.
has just slipped off a cliff since he's
Yeah.
been out.
I mean, he did play, but 24, 89 yards, no touchdowns, but he's not been the same player.
They can't
in the last
lean
couple
on
of weeks.
him,
No,
basically.
exactly.
And when you're leaning on Derek Carr, that's
Derek Carr's didn't have a terrible game,
no,
though.
but he
They're
needs
just-
a balanced offense.
Well, they're just
Yeah.
missing a superb wide receiver like Antonio Brown or someone.
Yeah, imagine that if you had him and then he had to go because he was crazy.
Well,
Still
and,
the
and
right- it
police
was the
have been
right
back at his
decision.
house this week as well, haven't they?
Oh, have they?
Have you
Oh,
not seen that to get
What was
his,
Sting doing?
to get his children's clothes or something?
Thank you, one person without the mic who's laughing.
I was quietly laughing. It was a terrible joke.
It was a terrible joke. Speaking of terrible jokes, did you see the Colts playing last night? The Saints-Colts game ended Colts 7, Saints 34.
You can't lead with the Colts
Well, they were...
into that.
That's-
Not when Drew Brees is now the most.
I thought maybe that Brian Hoyer had been playing again or something.
No, Jacoby Brissett, 18 of 34, 165 yards.
It sounds like
And
Brian Hoyer was
nothing
playing.
else. We're
Can-
getting to
can
Drew
we talk-
Brees. I'm giving you the,
No,
I'm giving you the
should
comparison.
You should be leading.
Drew
with
Brees, 29 of 30, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, no
Yeah.
picks.
Highest ever completion
Yeah,
rate, isn't
and
it?
now
Beat
holds
his
the,
5
own
point-
records.
and now
I
holds,
beat Philip Rivers' record.
No, did he?
and now holds the record for most touchdown passes in a career, overtaking Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
He's now got 542.
It's absolutely
Brady's
phenomenal
3
performance.
back, isn't he?
Yeah, because he passed Brady and Manning on the
Yeah.
same day.
I mean, it'd be good if he had another ring, and then he'd probably be Hall of Fame bound like Eli.
It is disgusting that Drew Brees has fewer rings than Eli Manning.
Yeah, I like it.
That's
That he has
what a
this-
Giants defense will do for you. I saw this graphic earlier this week which showed the most sacks by all teams of all time, and the Giants in the 90s was just in the early 2000s was just crazy.
Oh, Michael
You know,
Strahan with
their
about
their
20 a
defense
season.
was just
Also, Yuminara
Just
on the
so
other
good.
side as well was a good. Yeah,
You haven't got a microphone, John. You need
Yeah.
to borrow a microphone.
Usio Manura had 6 in one game.
7 wasn't it?
He had a lot of sacks in one game.
Yeah, I think it was 7.
6 in
So
his
I'm
own.
not sure that Eli was there, but I'm not sure it was all about Eli.
No, it certainly wasn't. But the Saints' success has been more or less all about Drew Brees. He went there in
2006.
I would say they
2006.
are the standout favourites in the NFC because they
I wouldn't
are
agree with that.
trending in exactly the right direction. Whereas the Niners are starting to tail off a little bit. The Seahawks, we think, are not as good as the record may suggest.
They're not as good as the Saints.
But then the
basically.
Saints just, I know we beat them in the Superdome, but they do look seriously good.
My concern with the Saints is the same as it was last week, and they've got one receiver, Michael Thomas, who is brilliant, no doubt about that. 12 receptions, 28 yards. But then Jared Cook had a good game, but after that,
You've got Taysom Hill, 2 receptions, 42 yards and a touchdown. That's his 6th touchdown of the season.
okay, but he's hardly a reliable wide receiver.
But he is a reliable scorer. 6 touchdowns on the season.
Got Ted Ginn.
It's crazy.
yes,
He does
I've
have
got
more than
Ted Ginn,
Kamara.
You're right,
Traquan
but you're not
Smith.
adding to the argument.
No, I understand the point that Jim is making, and he's not wrong. But
Thank you.
I think it matters less than it would on some other
If
teams.
they'd have picked up Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If they had
Absolutely.
he could have picked up any number of wide
Where's Des
receivers.
Bryant floating around
If,
now?
if Sanu had
Des
gone to the
Bryant,
Saints,
who was signed by them
would
last
that have made a
season.
difference.
Yeah.
Quickly, then, a word on the Colts and their collapse, because they were 6-2 and they're now 6-8, I think, or they were 6-3 and they're now 6-8.
They've
Yeah.
just been found out by better teams.
They've been found out. They've
They
lost
have.
players at skill positions. T.Y. Hilton played 4 receptions, 25
and
yards.
this is why
but he's
Andrew
not
Luck
fit.
shouldn't have bottled it. And, because Brissett's done okay.
But what's to make you think Luck wouldn't have got injured again?
Yeah,
I don't
think you can
think.
blame it on the luck thing. Also, what has happened in the last few weeks with the Colts is the rushing game. Marlon Mack.
Marlon
was
Mack's carrying an injury, isn't he? Broke his
Yeah.
hand.
Mack had a good start to the season, but since he got injured, he had 11 carries to 19 yards.
This was
That's
almost
bullshit.
Farrow length
Yeah,
territory.
since the return of the Mac, he's just been
Not
poor.
been a good return.
Right. The Bears playoff chances ended with defeat to the Green Bay Packers 21-13, despite Trubisky putting up a decent performance and more or less matching Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers now 18-5 in his career against the Bears. And this was the first time that Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams both scored touchdowns in the same game, which I was astounded at because I wouldn't have thought that.
Well, Aaron Jones, before this year,
Elite player. Where do we put the Packers in terms of Super Bowl favourites? Where are they in the ranking? Because I think they're quite low. I think they're maybe 5 or 6 out of 6 from the NFC.
There's an NFC Championship game that this team will lose.
You think they're going to get to the championship game?
Yeah.
Because this offense is not.
I think
doing
it depends if they have to play the Saints before the championship game. If they don't, then I can see them getting to the championship game.
Okay.
Purely because if you look at, Russell Wilson obviously is a great player. Jimmy G, not played playoff football yet. So I think it's difficult to, the NFC is tough, but Aaron Rodgers in prime time, Aaron Rodgers in playoff situation, Aaron Rodgers having to win on a last drive every week, that gives you a very good chance.
It does.
In tight games. So I think that they will be a better team in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. Be my guess.
I'd probably agree with that, but through not wanting to sound like a broken record here, outside of Devontae Adams, the receiving core is terrible. So for the season so far, Devontae Adams has got 788 receiving yards off 10 games because he had some injuries. Marcus Valdez-Scantling is next on 427. Do you want to know who's next?
Geronimo
Allison? Alan Lazard, yeah.
Nope.
Jones?
Jimmy
Aaron
Graham.
Jones.
Oh, really?
Aaron Jones on 425, then Jimmy G on 382, and then Alan Lazard on 363. Aside from Devontae Adams, there's no reliable receiver there at all.
See, I think the receivers are good. I question whether the scheme is getting them into positions they should be. And I also question Aaron Rodgers, is he holding the ball too long? Because every time I see him, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, then he throws the ball.
You're right.
Like he's waiting for the big plays. He's not
no one
picking
can
up.
take a picture of him if he throws it too fast.
Well,
It
feels a bit that way.
Right. He does need to be taking the check down a few more times than he is.
Yeah,
He's
there's a
for
lot
big
of
plays,
5, 6, 7 yard passes that he could be taking, and he's not. And that's why players like Jimmy Graham are not contributing on a regular basis because they are there and they are open. You can't tell me Jimmy Graham is a worse player than Jason Witten. He's not.
Yeah, but they're both on Zimmer frames.
Yes, but my point is, when Jason Witten is open, Dak Prescott throws in the ball, even if it's only 5, 6 or 7 yards. Whereas Jimmy Graham, unless he gets 20 yards down the field, Aaron Rodgers isn't looking at him. And that is a problem for Rodgers and the scheme to overcome. This is not to be critical of Green Bay particularly. They're doing all right with a new coach. It's just there are kinks to work out, and it's whether or not you work that out fast enough to still take advantage of a player like Aaron Rodgers.
They've got a really tough game next week against the Vikings, Monday Night Football.
That decides the division, doesn't it?
In Minnesota as well, I think. I think the Vikings are a better team at the moment.
I would have to agree. I also think the Vikings are a better team. Let's talk about the Vikings. They humbled the Chargers 39-10. The Chargers tied a record for this season, I believe, with 7 giveaways. I think the Bucks had 7 earlier in the season as well, in the Jameis Winston 4-5 interception game, whatever it was. 0 sacks for the Chargers as well for the 4th time this season, which is not good. The team that isn't great on offense has to be good on defense, and they're not producing on either side of the ball. And Melvin Gordon, it's all over. Lost 2 fumbles in this game. He's not putting up the yardage. I don't know where he plays next season, but it's not for the Chargers.
Total of 5 fumbles by the Chargers in this game. 4 of them lost. Rivers was 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 307 yards. But, we've said it throughout the season. Gary's finally been proved right. Rivers is not a good quarterback anymore. God, I hate him.
It's all over for Phillip Rivers. It's all over. And he's talking about playing again next season somewhere else. But no one should be taking a chance.
This is a game that was close going into half-time. The Vikings were 13-7 up, and some of the final points that the Vikings scored was off a turnover, and then they just sped away.
He'll turn up somewhere, play 3 or 4 games, and then a younger quarterback will take over.
Yeah.
Someone will take a punt on
probably
him.
Right.
Are there any states that pay child benefit?
He would be raking it in if there was. Melvin Gordon, 7 carries, 28 yards. Apologies if you can hear John dying in the background. That's why he hasn't got a microphone this week. 7 carries, 28 yards for Gordon. Eckler 7 carries for 19. There just wasn't anything there for them to run through. The Vikings are getting better and better and better. Cousins isn't making the catastrophic mistakes. This is a good team going into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got a great defence as well, and that's obviously vital going into the playoffs.
So, let's talk about the Bucks. The Bucks hammered the Lions 38-17, and Jameis became the first player ever with 450 passing yards in 2 consecutive games. Now that is impressive. This is why he's going to get signed. 30 touchdown passes for the season, 29 interceptions he's on, with 2 games still to go. That's absolutely crazy. He's going to be back for the next year or 2 with the Bucks because Arians isn't going to want to train a new player that he doesn't know is going to be able to win games. And he isn't a good quarterback. No, he's a good thrower of the ball.
He's the perfect quarterback for the Arians offense. Bruce Arians always likes a quarterback who can throw a massive deep ball. Carson Palmer was the same. Winston can do that. He's got an incredible arm. If he plays like this every game, he's a franchise quarterback without a doubt.
2 years ago, before they were on Hard Knocks or whatever, that he was seen as a real talent, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And then he just is. For me, it's
he's
got to stop turning over the ball.
Yeah,
the talent has always been there. Yeah. His leadership has always seemed reasonably good.
But let's not forget he's done this without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for most of the game as well. So it's not that he's just.
Bashard Perriman now has. Did he have 3 touchdowns in this game?
Like that,
He's only ever had 3 in a season once before.
It was his first ever 100-yard game as well.
He's turning Bashard Perriman into a really good player.
Some of the passes from Winston, I said this earlier about what's his face, Carson Wentz. Some of the passes from Winston were absolutely spot on, dropped on a dime.
But it's for me. It should be over. 29 interceptions.
Yeah,
no one has ever thrown 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in a season, and he could still make 5,000 yards as well. Like he's had nearly 1,000 passing yards in 2 games. It's phenomenal, but those turnovers mean you're never going to win a Super Bowl with him. You are just not. He might get you to a Super Bowl, and another team will just say, right, we are playing deep, and we will pick him off 5 times. Imagine if he came up against the Patriots. You'd say the Patriots can never beat this offense, ever, because they can't outscore him. But they would pick him off 5-6 times.
But again, we talk about players that have to pass the ball too much. And the run game in Tampa Bay is also terrible. Every time it looks like it's going to do something. Doug Martin looked like he was going to do something for a while. Then he found God, and it all went wrong. Yeah, and then
God not very good at blocking. God makes a terrible fullback.
Ronald Jones. Everyone thought he's going to be
Rojo.
I'm not. He doesn't deserve any sort of nicknames. So like the first,
he was just Duck Hodges.
Rookie year. He looked like he was. We thought he was going to be great. He was awful. This year he showed glimpses for like 2 or 3 weeks, got himself a nickname, and then ends up terrible.
Also noticed the 3rd receiver for Tampa Bay this week in the wake of Godwin going off injured and Evans missing the game. Sounded like a mid-card wrestler from the 90s. It's Scotty Miller. 3 receptions, 49 yards, and a vicious elbow off the top rope.
Fatty Miller.
Yeah, that's him. Vicious elbow off the top rope.
Didn't he play for the Bulls?
That's Scottie Pippen, isn't it? That's completely different, very different sort of player.
Very different.
That's the NFL random name generator back in full swing, isn't it?
Shaq Barrett ties the Warren Sapp sack record for the Bucks with 16.5. He's gonna break that over the next couple of weeks.
Oh, you'd fully expect him to.
And Arians has already come out and said if he won't sign, we're franchise tagging him.
But just imagine how good this team would be if their quarterback didn't throw the ball to the other team 29 times.
Well, they'd be pushing the Saints for the division, is where they would be. But they can't.
At least have a wild card.
29 times.
Should they go for someone like Gordon?
Yes.
Yeah, but they've got enough problems with turnovers.
He has got a fumble problem this week, apparently.
He had a fumble problem, but yes, they need a star running back who's got something to prove. Yes, they probably should. That's a good shout for a man who's not talking today. That's a good shout. I was trying to find things we could talk about the Lions. Danny Amendola went over 100 yards. I think that might be the first time this season.
I've got something interesting to tell you.
Oh, bloody hell.
Matt Patricia has been confirmed, apparently, for the 2020 season.
Yeah, I read that earlier that they were talking about bringing him back because they're basically saying Matt Stafford being injured has cost him the season. But
yeah, I think that's fair.
It's fair, but I don't think it's going to make much difference.
This was a team that was at one point they were 3-3-1.
You sacked him at least 4 times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think he's been terrible.
Season started.
I think he's been terrible.
They did start off the season okay. They've since lost 7 games. That is mainly because the quarterback's not there. I don't think you can put too much else on Matt Patricia or anything else here. I think he's
David Blau, 24 of 43. I mean, you should never be allowing a rookie second choice from where was he? Purdue quarterback to be throwing 43 passes. But when your leading rusher is, here's random name generator, Wes Hills, 10 carries for 21 yards. What choice have you got?
That stat line is not actually very good, 10 for 21. But some of the runs he had were really important. He absolutely bullied his way through defensive lines.
Hammer.
Yeah.
Hammer of a man.
No one's saying he's bad, but this game had got out of hand because they couldn't defend.
They've lost their quarterback. They've lost their lead runner, who was starting to look pretty decent. I think you have to just reset and go into next season.
The Browns' playoff hopes ended.
Browns' playoff hopes ended a long time ago.
Well, technically they were in the race.
Freddie Kitchens took over.
Freddie Kitchens, who is now favourite to be there next season.
Yes, apparently so.
Oh, what a stupid mistake.
Bullshit.
They're just Brownsing it up, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, they've got, there's rumours that OBJ wants out. There's now rumours that Jarvis Landry wants out. The fans want out. The fans want out. Everyone seems
apparently
pissed
Beckham
off.
was asking to go to the Steelers, wasn't he?
Beckham's asking to go into pretty much every team. Landry was shouting at the Cardinals.
CFL.
Landry was shouting at the Cardinals sideline to come and get him. I mean,
Drake had a massive argument with Kitchens on the sideline, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean...
and Landry, yeah.
Kitchens, I said this before, he hasn't got the discipline to run a team. He hasn't got the experience to run a team.
Speaking of discipline, I ought to point out that the Browns lost 24-38 because I actually didn't get that far. They lost 24-38 to the Cardinals in the Kenyon Drake game as he went for 4 touchdowns and could have had a 5th as well. I believe one was called back.
Yeah.
So the Browns have got nothing going for them. We've seen the odd spike on the scale this season where they've turned up.
They are one of the teams that have beat the Ravens this year. I really don't understand how.
They just seem like, let's get these amazing wideouts. Let's get this decent running game. Let's have this great quarterback. And put...
He's not a great quarterback.
That's
not been proven.
Someone who has the potential to be a great quarterback.
Yes, okay.
He did all right in his first season.
Yeah, I'm saying he's got the potential to be, but...
But then put shit all in front of him.
Well, it's his first full season, isn't it?
Yeah, the offensive line needs addressing in the off-season, but more importantly, the whole coaching team needs addressing in the off-season because they've got a good defense as well. They've got pieces in all 3 sections of the defense.
Well, when you pick first for 8 out of the last 10 years or whatever it is, you should have some players somewhere.
I mean, let's bear in mind, it's only, I think, 4 years. There's drafts from 4 years ago where there's not a single player on the team.
The only team to have a losing record in every season of this century. This decade.
Wow.
So since 2010 to now, they're the only team that have gone losing record every single year.
But General Manager John Dorsey, he's done a good job in putting together what looks like an amazing team on the field, but he hasn't done the job in terms of appointing the right head coach. He needs to cut the loss, get a decent head coach in there. Mike McCarthy, for instance, he's had a season off now. He could probably go in there and do a much better job.
So why is Freddie Kitchens the favourite to keep his job?
I don't know. I think it's just
because I've heard you talk a lot about John Dorsey and how much you admire his ability to turn a team round. But this is a shit decision.
You can't deny it. On paper, this looks like an amazing
it does.
team.
But it's all about what glues them together. And the answer is nothing.
Well, there's nothing in terms of leadership from both the head coach position, but also from the quarterback position. Baker Mayfield is just a loud noise. He's not a leader yet. They've lost one of the biggest leaders in Miles Garrett.
Baker Mayfield is all about Baker Mayfield. He's not about the Browns.
But then also, OBJ has always been all about OBJ. I don't think Jarvis Landry's like that, but then maybe they've got a few too many big personalities. You said last week that you don't want OBJ on the 49ers, and I completely agree with that because he's not a team player.
Do you not think this is why you struggle to compare the NFL and the NBA? Because on the NBA, there's only 5 guys on a court, so you can have 1 or 2 personalities that dominate the game because they get the ball every play. Whereas in the NFL, it doesn't work like that. Beckham can go 3 quarters without being targeted, and he kicks off because there's so many other players available.
Everything's different. Like they have super contracts and all these kinds of
things.
Yeah, as well.
I understand.
The
but
way
in
that
terms
they
of
structure your kind of stature within the game changes, as well because. I support the Celtics, and we moved on for some, some players this year because we had a lot of youth players coming through, and they just weren't getting into the team, and there was conflict in the dressing room. So we moved on the more expensive players and let that youth come through, which, like you say, you have less players, you have a smaller roster, I suppose, to use. But I do just think it's about, Oh, sorry, John was just waving at me.
We thought the laptop had broken again.
I agree to a point, but you can have the players with attitudes. You need managers who can handle them, and Freddie Kitchens can't handle them. The Legion of Boom was a team full of players with huge attitudes, but they had Pete Carroll who can handle players with attitudes, and when they have reached their use, he's moved on from them.
I do wonder.
But yeah, Freddie Kitchens is not the man to have.
I love the way John sounds so angry tonight,
no.
even though he's not. He's just raspy.
Yeah, he's just raspy.
But
what he is right.
He does raise a very good point. You take
Yeah.
some of the greatest NFL teams of all time. The Steelers in the 70s were a gigantic bunch of knobs, but Chuck Noll got them to perform.
I wonder what would happen if you took Tom Coughlin and put him on this team. So bear in mind, Tom Coughlin has managed OBJ before, but he's a renowned disciplinarian, and he won't put up with shit like that. Like he just won't.
I was about to say that what's happening at the Browns very much reminds me of what's happening at the Jags.
Yeah, and it's the same reason because Doug Marrone still thinks of
Tom
himself as a
Coughlin-
player.
Tom Coughlin isn't in the dressing room, but you know, when he was the head coach of the Giants, like if you watch the Americas games with his two Super Bowl wins, and the first one, I think Michael Strahan's one of the presenters, and he's saying he had a massive problem with Tom Coughlin because timekeeping was utmost important. You had to be there 5 minutes before the meeting started. It was Coughlin time. I think if you put a coach like that into the Browns, who has got experience, not just in terms of being a head coach, but actually experience in managing players with big egos, because he's done it before. Michael Strahan, OC.
Where's McCarthy going to turn up?
I don't know if he will.
I think he'll be back next year.
I think he probably will be back next year.
He'll definitely be back next year.
But
Griff's going to sack a third of the entire league, so he's going to be somewhere, isn't he? Surely.
He's got a good shout to be somewhere. But whether he's the type of coach that the Browns need or not, whether he is that disciplinarian, I'm not sure he is.
Do you not think this is a result of the Browns trying to bring in enough players to make themselves an overnight success rather than working hard to be a long-term success? Because you cannot build a dynasty in one season. And that is what they have tried to do.
It takes time to go in.
2 seasons.
No, it takes a lot of time to try and scout every team's sideline.
Exactly. Now, you imagine the dedication. I mean, Christ, you think the Bengals are probably the last team we've done because they're the worst. We've done everyone else.
If you look at kind of the talent on the Browns versus the talent on the 49ers, at the beginning of the season, you probably would have said the Browns are going to have a better record than the 49ers. And the main thing that's different is the head coach and the head coach and the way the team's built. The head coach is a good tactician. He's amazing when it comes to drawing up plays, a good trick play. And the second thing is the way the team has been built. They haven't got the egos. They got rid of a load of egos. Gary made that point last week. They got rid of all the players that are causing trouble in the dressing room. They brought in players that they want to have in that franchise.
But there's a big difference because the 49ers have got a team of their own first-round picks. The Browns have got a team of everyone else's first-round picks.
But they're good first-round picks. They're team players. There's not any egos there. Even DeForest Buckner, who is probably the best out of those first-round picks. Okay, Nick Bosa.
But your players with attitude kept getting arrested.
Yeah,
well, they did. Yeah, they got rid of all
just
those.
got rid of them all.
Yeah, it cleaned house.
Have Cleveland tried to build a brand rather than a team?
Yeah,
well, I'm sure they've made a lot more money this year.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And that is exactly John's point. Is exactly what I was saying. That they've tried to skip out all the important building blocks and just go straight to being important, and you can't do that. Now, Larry Fitzgerald
in Cleveland, what they're doing, they're having to replace a basketball team as well, who lost LeBron James, and they're having to bring a whole new thing to the city.
Yeah, of course.
But at the same point, there's still something for me in the way that they're scheming, because if you have Odell Beckham, you should be throwing him the ball at least once in 3 quarters.
Well, they tried to get it to him 13 times, just the most in the whole team this year. Now I think they're trying to force him the ball now because there's been such an uproar about him not getting as many yards or as many catches as Jarvis Landry.
But there's a euphemism about a fart, isn't there?
Yeah, but Jarvis Landry's been the better wide receiver this year, by far.
Yeah, and he kicks up less as well. 241 consecutive matches for Larry Fitzgerald with a reception. So he's only behind Jerry Rice, but he's miles behind. Was it 290 Jerry Rice had got?
Oh, yeah, it's a long
Jerry
way
Rice was
behind.
playing when he was 74 years old.
42.
Absolutely. And we should credit the Cardinals here because they actually played really well. Chandler Jones was brilliant on the defence.
I actually want to talk a bit about Kyler Murray as well.
Go for goal.
Because I think he's had a tough first season, but behind that offensive line, who wouldn't have a tough first season? Josh Rosen had it last year. I think the difference with Kyler Murray is his escapability. He had one run where he absolutely flew past half the Browns' defence, cut back inside, flew past the other half, and almost scored a touchdown. He's got the potential to be Lamar Jackson next year with his pace and his kind of awareness of the game as well.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably a better passer than Lamar Jackson is.
And the Kenyon Drake game certainly spelled the end of David Johnson. 3 carries, 6 yards. I don't know where he ends up. I hope he gets another shot.
He's going to be at the Cardinals again.
You reckon?
Well, just because of the salary.
Yep.
Yeah, I do wonder if somebody will...
Unless it's a big salary dump and they send him to Miami.
Yeah, whether we see... Who was it a few years ago? Brock Osweiler style trade where they basically just take on the salary and take on the player.
Yeah,
I can see that happening, and I really hope he gets the opportunity somewhere else. But, Kenyon Drake, you can't fault what he's done. Right, we have to talk about the Chiefs and the Broncos who played the snow game this weekend. The Broncos scored 3 points. The Chiefs scored 23. This is the best Mahomes has played since his injury.
Yeah.
So he is healing up.
Back to his best.
And Drew Lock, despite playing in Denver, where you'd imagine he's been practicing for a while, looked like he'd never seen snow before. It wasn't pretty. I think at half time he had 2 yards. It was bad. For a man whose reputation is how far can I throw the ball? Not very was the answer. Harrison Butker, interestingly, for the Chiefs, has now set the record for the most points in the first 3 seasons of a player's career. So he is the new Justin Tucker. He is creeping up on Tucker. Like, all of Tucker's records are falling to Butker. And it's done very quietly because no one talks about him because you're on a team with Pat Mahomes. It's very impressive. And Kelsey, the first tight end with 4 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons because he doesn't get injured the way Gronk does. No. Very, very good. There's not a massive amount to be said, but
the snowball fight at the start of the game was good.
Yeah, that's always a winner. You love to see it. But players having fun. That's good. That's how it should be.
It was like Muppets at Christmas.
It just looked like the snow just didn't affect Mahomes at all. And I don't know if it should or not, but 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. That's pretty good. He's
legitimately the best quarterback in the league.
I think you're right.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but he's one of the top 3 or 4. Fifth successive 10-win season for the Chiefs, and they are now 11-1 against the AFC when Mahomes is playing.
But they've also got Andy Reid.
AFC West, sorry.
They are going to choke in the playoffs.
Well, it's entirely possible, but one day he has to just get lucky rather than just doing it right. He has to get lucky, and maybe this is the year. You've got to bear in mind the Mahomes injury, for the sake of not very much, could have been a season ender, and it wasn't. So to get back from that and to be coming right at this time of the season,
sometimes it's just your year.
It just looks like he's coming back into form now, and that is what you want.
I mean, you always have this, don't you? Going into the playoffs, you have a team who are absolutely lit the regular season alight, and everyone's like they're going to get to the Super Bowl. Now don't get to the Super Bowl, and they lose in the divisional round. Well,
I think that'll be the Niners this year.
Well, the Niners, that could be the Ravens. That could be the Ravens as well.
They just seem like they're just tailing off.
I think you're probably right with the Niners, and I think we probably, we're hoping they get there. But it's a
Is this what it sounds like when I'm down on the Patriots?
Yeah, massively.
Right, just checking.
You're much worse.
Yeah, exactly. But I think kind of with the experience of last year, maybe the Chiefs are the team to beat the Ravens to the Super Bowl for the AFC. The Chiefs have actually picked up Tyrell Suggs off waivers after the Cardinals let him go.
Niners wanted him as well.
Yeah, lots of teams wanted him, and the Chiefs have got the highest waiver.
Wasn't he only released not because of performance, but because they wanted to play the younger players?
Yeah, exactly.
And they'd already said he wasn't going to be there next year, so they've just given him a head start on finding a home. I think that's the right
Giving
thing
him a
to
chance
do.
to win in the Super Bowl, haven't they?
Yeah.
I think so. It's a great pickup for the Chiefs.
We haven't mentioned Tyrann Mathieu much this season for the Chiefs, but he had five solo tackles and a sack in this game, and 2 passes defensed. Like he's been excellent on this team very quietly this season.
I think the backfield for Chiefs has been pretty bad, but he's been a high spot in it.
Yeah, absolutely. The Broncos only rushed for a total of 56 yards, which for a team with Big Royce and Philip Lindsay is not enough when you need to carry a rookie quarterback. That's not going to get it done. It's not like Kansas City's defense has been good against the run. And the snow should, in theory, affect the run game less, but neither of these teams have got good running games. That might be the Chiefs' downfall in the playoffs.
I don't know. I think the Broncos' running game isn't that bad. I think both Lindsay and Freeman on the day can be 100, 120-yard rushers.
Big Royce.
I just think they've had a bad day. Like, Broncos all around have just had a pretty bad day.
And now Kareem Jackson suspended for 2 games, so effectively the season for performance-enhancing drugs, or breaking that policy anyway. DUI?
Driving under the influence.
Oh, is that what he got
That's
done for?
That's what it was for.
Oh, okay. Well, so that's
He's
his
suspended
season.
anyway.
Yeah,
that's his season.
That's the thing. Sometimes it's a bit misleading. They come out with this substance abuse thing, but yeah, he got done drink driving.
Oh, well, we've all been there, haven't we, Jim?
John.
No, I don't know. I'm just throwing names out there. No. Nobody on this podcast has ever been there. I don't think.
No.
Right. Let's have a look at the playoff picture. Guys, have we got the playoffs in front of us?
I've got the players.
What are the calculations for the AFC?
Currently, AFC, first seed is Ravens, second seed Patriots, third seed is Chiefs, fourth seed is Texans, and then 2 wild cards, fifth seed Bills, sixth seed Steelers. In the hunt, we've got the Titans, Browns, and Raiders still. But
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
the Titans are 8-6, and the Browns and Raiders are both 6-8. So there's still a chance they could get there. But realistically, the wild card's going to come down to the Steelers and the Titans for the.
Do they
sixth
play
seed.
each other, the Steelers and Titans?
No, I'm not sure.
No, I don't. Maybe not. I know that the Titans play the Texans again.
Yeah. And then this week, that's the final game. No, this week the Titans have got the Saints.
Ooh.
Who have the Steelers got?
Jets and Ravens.
Thank you.
The Steelers have got a really good chance of making the playoffs,
Yeah,
and they
'cause-
would be an awful team in the playoffs. Because you wouldn't want to face them, but they're still not going to be very good. And what about the NFC? How are we looking on the
In
NFC?
the
side?
NFC, from top to bottom, first seed Seahawks, second seed Packers, third seed Saints, fourth seed the Dallas Cowboys, and then wild card, fifth seed 49ers, sixth seed Vikings, and in the hunt we've got the Rams and we've got the Eagles. So in the wild card for the NFC, the 49ers are 11-3, Vikings are in 10-4, and then the Rams are 2 games back on 8-6, and the Eagles on 7-7. Now the Eagles obviously could get in.
They
by
are
winning the
either a
NFC
divisional
East.
winner
Yeah,
or out.
or
aren't they?
out.
They're
because
not a wild card.
both the Eagles and the Cowboys are on 7-7, and the Cowboys are there based on the fact that they beat them, but they've also got to play each other.
I think the NFC teams are pretty set. It's just we're just looking at
I think it's
seedings now.
Seedings, and I
Yeah.
think it's whether the Cowboys or the Eagles.
Yeah.
You'd imagine the Cowboys are going to do that, but it's so hard to predict.
Yeah, I would think so. But like you said earlier, they're so inconsistent. You don't know what the Cowboys team's going to turn
Should
up.
we have a look at next week's fixtures? Just bring those up, and we'll run through those quickly. See what
So,
games.
Got those in front of me.
Go
So
for gold.
Starting with the Buccaneers and the Texans.
That now, bearing in mind how the Texans have played, there is absolutely a serious chance that the Bucs beat them, because the Texans' secondary is not good, and
Were they 40-0 down in the week? Were they about 20, 30-0 down at half
Against the
time?
Ravens.
yeah,
Yeah.
they've been bad, and they've also been bad at putting successive wins together.
Oh, I think the Texans will win that.
I'd take the Bucs.
I'm going to take the Bucks because they're on a 4-win streak.
Go on. What else have we got?
Bills, Patriots.
Yep.
Well,
In
obviously,
Foxborough, so the Patriots
obviously,
will
my
win.
money's on the Patriots.
I
Patriots.
think that's the first time we've ever bet the Patriots, isn't it?
Yeah, so you watch them lose now. I think
Yeah.
we beat the Bills by 3 points earlier in the season.
I think it's going to be a really tight game.
I think this comes down to the kick-in. Because it's
Oh
too
dear.
well. Nick Folk has been the best of our substitute kickers, which is why they re-signed him. I think this comes down to a field goal game again, and in Foxborough, you'd say the Patriots are going to take that.
You obviously worry about the offense in terms of Brady throwing the ball has been pretty bad. The running game's not there.
But-
And this Bills defense is really good.
If there's one thing Josh Allen isn't designed for, it's accuracy against a really good secondary.
This is true.
And if they get to him and
God,
pick him off a
it's
couple of
gonna be
times,
Such a low-scoring game, isn't it?
it could well be. What else we got?
49ers, Rams.
Oh,
Not San Francisco,
Santa Clara. Yeah.
in Santa Clara. I mean, 49ers.
Yeah,
all
I
day.
think it's 49ers.
Jets, Steelers.
I'm taking the Steelers. I think their defense is too good, and if you get to Darnold, you know he falls apart.
Giants, Redskins.
It's a nothing game,
Toss
but
a coin.
I
I think the Redskins could win this.
I think the
based on last
It's
week's
in
performance.
Washington.
I'm assuming Eli's not playing, and if he's not playing, then the Redskins will win that.
Ravens Browns.
The Ravens will crush them. It's over for the Browns. There's no
In
discipline.
Cleveland, they normally win at Christmas. I'm going to go Cleveland to get shock win.
That would be a shocker. Can't see it. John's shaking his head in his Wham t-shirt.
No.
The Ravens have got nothing to play for, really, have they?
They can still lose the first seed, but
They need the assurance win.
They have won the AFC
And,
North.
and Harbaugh is not one.
They
for
would
resting
rather
players.
get the first seed and then
Yeah,
rest
absolutely.
players.
Yeah. Go on. What else we got?
Titans Saints.
It's in Tennessee.
Saints.
It's a good Titans defense.
It is absolutely a game that the Titans can win. The Titans have to win. The Saints don't have anything to play for. I'm going to say the Titans squeak this one.
Oh, you say that again. It's seedings. It's going to be an issue. The Saints have currently got the third seed, so they wouldn't get a bye. You're trying to tell me a 41-year-old quarterback doesn't want to week off?
He absolutely wants the bye. I just think the Titans have got to win just to stay in the race, and I just think they will. Let's be honest. They'd gone 6-1. They're now 6-2 under Tannehill, and this loss last week was not on Tannehill. He played really well. I think this is a game he will be well up for, and he can keep up with Drew Brees.
Yeah, closet Titans fan, of course.
And then we've got some terrible,
South.
pointless games. Jags, Falcons, no one cares. Raiders, Chargers, no one cares. Lions, Broncos, no one cares.
Colts, Panthers, no one cares. Dolphins, Bengals, no one cares.
Hang on, no one cares. Colts, Panthers. Will Greer, will he be better or worse than Kyle Allen?
Same.
John's flatlining it.
Yeah.
Darius
they're both-
Leonard's going
they're
to
both back
crush
up.
him.
Yeah.
I think this could be a big Colts win.
Cowboys, Eagles.
Cowboys, Eagles for the NFC East in Philadelphia.
I'm going Eagles.
I'm going Eagles, and I hate it.
I
but
think it'll be Eagles as well.
it's a nod.
The Cowboys won this week, so they'll lose next week.
Yeah, it's all round the table. We're all picking the Eagles. Wow,
Chiefs are at Bears, and that's the kind of game they lose.
that is the kind of game they lose. But I think the Chiefs will squeak it.
I think the Chiefs have got enough to get past the Bears.
And then Packers, Vikings.
The
Monday
Favre
Night
Bowl.
Football.
Vikings are winning that game.
It's in Minnesota.
Vikings are winning that game
So
comfortably
that is
as well.
Kirk Cousins on a Monday night.
Yeah.
We'll see.
He's not been bad the last two primetime games.
So the last time they played was in Lambeau, obviously, and the Packers won by, I think it was a score, and there's two horrible offensive holding calls against the Vikings.
That were
Like,
never
They were
holding.
never holding calls. The first one maybe, the second one definitely wasn't. The Vikings are more than capable of beating the Packers, and I think they're the better team at the moment. So obviously the Packers are going to win.
Yeah. I agree with you on that.
Is that all the fixtures?
Roughly.
More or less.
All the ones we need to talk about. Right, quickly then, who's still in our fantasy?
Nobody around this table.
Nobody around this table. We are officially sucky at fantasy football.
So we've got the pointless game.
Yep.
Then you've got me versus the one-man influenza machine, Johnny Crash. Me versus Barry White over there.
Third place, is it?
Yeah, play for the honour of being not as good as the people in the final.
Yeah. You're just better than Steve.
The better than Steve Bowl.
Brilliant stuff. Who is in the final then? Or who's in
So it's Dunk versus Andy.
Dunk
Andy
versus
Ball.
Andy. Oh, where are we going? Anyone?
Well, I've offered Andy any trades he needs. So my money's on Andy.
I'd offer Duncan any trades he needs, but I've got nothing.
You've
in my
dumped them
team.
already.
I dumped all my players.
Duncan, me and Chris both dumped all our players.
Unless he wants Derek Watt at fullback.
Duncan's going to listen to this and then go looking on his email going, where are all these trades?
I offered him
I've
James
still got
White.
I think I've still got DJ Moore, Duncan, if you want him.
Yeah.
He's pretty decent all year.
Well, thank you.
I'll go with Andy for help.
Thank you for listening to the Snap UK NFL podcast. It's been a pleasure having you. Sorry if it's been a bumpy ride this week, more so than usual, due to Chinese food intake and technical issues with wind. It's so true. Thanks for listening. That's us taking a knee. Bye-bye.